I understand that Yu-Gi-Oh can be extremely expensive, sometimes even ridiculously expensive. And then there's also the holidays coming up. No Nut November is right around the corner, though you probably practice that every month. So today I'm going to be bringing up some of the most powerful budget decks that you could be playing in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, but I'm actually going to make it a little bit more difficult. I won't be talking about some of the more popular budget decks, think Despia, Fluundereese, Exosister, and Mathmech. Though all those decks are fairly good and cheap, I'm pretty sure somebody has been whispering in your ear, "Yo, play Despia, play Despia, play Despia, play Despia." And at this point in time, maybe we should try something else. But of course, as usual, I will be posting deck lists of those particular decks and the decks that I'm going to mention on my Patreon as a special thank you for helping me pay my editors. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start this video like normal. What's going on with ya, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day, phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. Normally we say something right here about Update Monday. I genuinely have to figure out how many weeks we've been kicking rheumatoid arthritis' ass, but I feel good again. But moving forward, talking about some really popular budget decks, a deck that I really like right now is easily True Draco.
The terrifying, the deadly, the amazing
True Draco.
My name is Draco Slayer.
I don't care, get out there.
No, he got my name wrong.
Get out there, you moron.
Now, I did talk about True Draco in last week's video, as it is a top tier Yu-Gi-Oh deck that players are not playing, but seriously, it's also a very good budget deck too. Even with players buying out some of the pendulum cards that you need for the True Draco deck, this is still a relatively cheap deck, especially since in Ancient Guardians, all of the True Draco monsters received a reprint. You can get all of the extra deck and old Draco Slayer cards for less than $1, and the new cards from the Darkwing Blast set, they're still fairly cheap. What I like about Draco Slayer the most is that it actually brings the Draco Slayer deck and not everything else to life. Being able to synchro summon into Ignister Prominence is amazing. Bro, have you read this card? It can not only summon a Draco Slayer monster from your deck to your side of the field so you can continue playing, it can also remove a card off the field by destroying a pendulum scale. Dracos love to be destroyed. That card is so ridiculously busted and amazing at handling boards, especially since its effect is not a hard once per turn. Basically, you can keep on summoning Ignister over and over and over and over and over and over again, and every single time that this card comes back to the field, you can use both of those effects again. The deck also has a wide access to Exceeds, Synchros, and Link monsters. This is easily one of the better budget decks that people are not paying attention to. But a strategy that Master Duel players may not be too fond of, it did come out in the set called Cosmic Ocean, and if I say it, you'll probably sleep. But Marincess is easily a top budget Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Not much has changed for Marincess. You summon Marincess monsters and you do Marincess plays. There's actually something that changed for Marincess. While hand traps may not be as powerful as before, Marincess has a specific advantage over some of the other cyber strategies. It can actually employ floodgates like Gozen Match and Rivalry of the Warlords, and even more importantly, it can protect those cards fairly easily. There's also another really cool combo for Marincess that just so happened to be introduced in Darkwing Blast. If you activate some of your Marincess monsters effects like Marincess Coral Anemone, you are locked into only being able to summon water monsters. This actually comes up in a really good way. If you just so happen to continue onto your combo to have enough monsters or summon a Link 4, you can link that monster off into World Sea Dragon Zealantis. World Sea Dragon Zealantis has not been as popular in the competitive circuit as some players would hope, but the good thing about this with Marincess is that when you banish all monsters on the field, you are attempting to summon them back, and you're locked into water monsters. So essentially, if you are playing against a non-water deck, you ain't summoning they monsters back. Bro, broskis, brosif. There's also not a single Marincess card over $6 that you will need, so you can pretty much use all of the excess money that you have to, I don't know, move out of your parents' basement. Who am I kidding? That's not gonna happen. Come on. Now, Blackwings never seem to get the respect that they deserve, but Darkwing Blast has made this deck a serious, powerful contender. It's actually even... What are you doing? Listen to Blackwings! Blackwings actually have some really cool combos. Don't fall for them. The reason why I say this is because Blackwings can make a super destruction board. All of us will lose to a Blackwing board. Only to get clapped by cards like Dark Ruler no more, but there's actually another way. I think Blackwing is better suited as a control deck and has one of the most powerful cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That it can easily synchro summon into in Blackwing Full Armor Master. I really like Blackwing Full Armor Master not only because it's really easy to summon in the Blackwing deck, it's also unaffected by card effects, meaning that if you already burn through your opponent's resources, this card can really come up in later game states, but it can actually even take your opponent's monster. Yo, girlfriend? You mean our girlfriend. Hey, how you doing? I'm your wife's boyfriend. At least that's what it feels when the correct Blackwing player is using the deck. Another thing that I like about this deck is that it has an infinite reinforcement of the army with Black Whirlwind. All you gotta do is normal summon, and you can normal summon 3 times. But the best thing about Blackwings, unless you are trying to get the most expensive version of the deck, the most expensive card is about $6, which is Blackwing Full Armor Master. Now, this next strategy really depends on how expensive the Ishizu cards are going to be. I've seen an entire pre-order for as low as $100, and then I've also seen the exact same cards for about $300. You kidding me, right? My best advice for budget players that are looking for these Ishizu cards for Magnificent Mavens is to probably consider laying off of them into the end of YCS Pasadena. They're expensive right now because they're hyped for YCS Pasadena. If they actually do show numbers, then, I mean, odds are we couldn't afford it anyway, so never punished. But a deck that I think takes full advantage of the Ishizu cards is Notoria. Now, you never would believe it, but if the Ishizu cards settle at about that $100 range for the entire core, then the Notoria cards they're cheap. The Notoria cards that you need from this deck are extremely cheap, and some of them even come in Darkwing Blast. Notoria Camellia allows you to send a Notoria card from your deck to the graveyard, and if you were to activate a Notoria monster that would tribute, you can send the top 2 cards from your deck to the graveyard instead. Notoria Mole Cricket allows you to tribute it to special summon up to 2 Notoria monsters from your deck, and can special summon itself from the graveyard if you control a Notoria monster and your opponent special summons a monster from the deck. This has made cards like Notoria Sunflower skyrocket in price, but fortunately enough, not only do we have a Hidden Arsenal reprint from the Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1 set, we also still have the Hidden Arsenal Super, which is about 75 cents. And with the Notoria Sacred Tree being reprinted in the latest OTS, the entire Notoria deck is not going to run you more than $10. It's really just dependent on how expensive those Ishizu cards will be. And lastly, if I had to give you guys another deck that was extremely budget, Tier Limit. No, hold on, hear me out. Tier Limit is actually cheap. The only legitimately uberly expensive card for Tier Limit is the Field Spell. What if we just didn't play it? We actually can play a version of Tier Limit that could take advantage of our Tier Limit monsters, but also take advantage of us not needing the Field Spell. In come Paleo Tier Limit. The Paleozoic Tier Limit deck is actually perfect. Not only do trap cards like Paleozoic Deinamiscus allow you to get rid of your opponent's most probable threat, it can also trigger the effect of your Tier Limit monsters to fuse, and your Paleozoic monsters on the field are Aqua monsters. There's also other amazing monsters that you could play in the deck like Absolute King Backjack. This could not only potentially trigger a Paleo, but since it sends the card to the graveyard no matter what, you'll still be able to activate a Tier Limit monster's effect as fuse because it was sent to the graveyard by a card effect. It's actually ridiculous how much synergy these two strategies have in with each other, and you can also summon a monster that Tier Limit can't normally summon, and totally awesome, which does get a reprint inside of Magnificent Mavens as well. And another cool thing about this is that, of course, you can always upgrade as your budget gets bigger. You don't have to buy cards like Tier Limit Rhinoheart or the Pirlino right away, but you do have room for improvement with your strategy, as well as a potential another strategy if you decide to keep on the Paleo cards. And for my bonus decks, I'm actually going to say Sword Soul and Sky Striker are not terrible decks. And while I don't think that these decks are going to be as powerful as they were at full power, they're still going to be really cheap decks to be able to get a hold of, especially if you're already buying a lot of boxes of Magnificent Mavens. Sword Soul is one of the more versatile synchro strategies, and since it's a worm deck, you can play with other decks like Virtual World or the Tingy cards. And despite what some people say, using Mystic Mine in your Sky Striker deck doesn't make you a glue eater. Maybe. I don't know, man. It depends on who you really ask. Some people might punch you, other people, they may be like, alright. But Sky Striker does have some of the most deadliest cards in the entire game. My favorites would be Sky Striker Mecha Widow Anchor, which can snatch your opponent's monster and negate its effects, and Shark Cannon, which can either DD Crow your opponent's monster or special summon it to your side of the field to do your bidding. Regardless, no matter which one of these decks that you choose, I think you'll have a fun time with the budget that you have, and if you want to see me rank these particular decks on a tier list, well, go ahead and let me know. Until then, go ahead and check out these videos. Like, seriously, click on this video or click on this video. You really ain't got an option.